What's up, guys? I'm Lucas and welcome back to Terracotta Aquarium. Today I just want to do a little bit of an update on the Blackwater Riverbed here. So it's been about a month and a half or so since I set this aquarium up. One major change is that I put a monstera up in the top of the tank and also a little bit of pothos. Both of those plants seem to be doing pretty well. The pothos already has a root that's going all the way down the side behind the heater here into the substrate, so that's great. The root growth on the monstera isn't quite as noticeable, but it's getting there. I can see little bits of growth here and there. Another major change is that I clipped some of the foam around the filter inlet and moved it back, and so I had to move a little bit of the vallisneria and another one of the plants, but I got it a little bit further back so it's not like right here on the front of the aquarium, which is great. The filter seems to be doing its job, maybe even a little bit too well, because I've been having to kind of re-up the amount of tannins in the tank. Every now and again I'm taking out an alder cone or two and boiling some fresh alder cones, adding them back into the tank, and then pouring a little bit of that water once it's room temperature, of course. So looking at it now, it doesn't really look that Blackwater, does it? When you compare it to the tank over here, you can definitely tell that there's a little bit of a tint to the water, but I might change around the filter pads in there. I think I need to just replace the fine one and add in another coarse filter sponge so that I can maintain that tannins look. I haven't had to do a lot of water changes on this tank. I think it's maybe been 2 or 3 since I set it up. The water parameters have been super stable. I'm sure that's attributed to the floating plants. There's a decent amount of fast-growing plants inside, and also the monstera and the pothos that are in there. They're keeping all of the water parameters super stable. In terms of the plants, I added a couple little sprigs of pearlweed, a couple over here, and then one sort of over here on this side of the tank. I also added one bigger piece of java fern in the center. I feel like it really kind of just pulls the whole thing together to have one sort of bigger plant right in the center. So those are all of the plants I've added. In terms of their growth, I feel like everything has been doing pretty well. I haven't seen too much crazy growth out of all of the baby java ferns that I added, but java ferns are pretty slow growing to begin with, so it's not crazy to see them not, exploding. But the vallisneria in the back has been doing super, super well. It has sent out like a ton of runners all the way across the back, and it's a little bit hard to see straight on, but it is chugging away. It's doing well. And the same is true for the dwarf sag in the front here. We've already got a bunch of little runners. There's a couple in the front here and one over there on the side. So it's been doing great, as I expected to do. Dwarf sag does super well in all of my tanks. The kind of mystery plants that I put into the back, they seem to be doing fine. I haven't noticed a whole crazy amount of growth on them, but they're not dying. So that's better than they've done in my other 2 tanks. And they look cool. I like the broad leaves, sort of in the back there. Overall, it's been doing okay. There have been some hiccups, though. So in terms of the fish, we started with 11 platinum adacas. I think I got an extra. In the last video I said 10. And 1 hillstream loach. And unfortunately, a few days after I set up the tank, one of the medacas passed away. So I'm not 100% sure what the reason was for the medaca passing away, but I unfortunately just found him on the substrate getting consumed by snails. And I'd been observing the fish, a decent amount before that and certainly after that, and I saw that there was a decent amount of aggression going on, so maybe they were establishing some sort of hierarchy in a new space, something like that. I'm not totally sure. Because I tested the water parameters after one of the Medacas passed away and did a water change. And there was nothing wrong with the parameters. Like I say, they've been super stable for this whole startup. So it's a bit of a mystery, and I think it probably had to do with some sort of aggression. Because I could see them, kind of chasing each other around a little bit, and they still do that a little bit. But I looked into Medacas and the Hillstream Loach and looked at their, appropriate temperatures, and I usually keep everything at about 76 degrees. And apparently Medacas, 76 is like on the high end for them. And so I thought maybe, that's causing some aggression. Who knows? It's a variable that I'm not totally controlling. And so I lowered the temperature down to 72, and that seems to have helped with their aggression quite a bit. So I'm happy that worked. There is one Medaca in here that I'm still like a little bit concerned about. We have just like one tiny little guy in here, and he seems like super skinny, which is strange because all of the others, I can tell are eating well. And I watch him super closely when I'm giving them some food, and it seems like he's not eating that much of the food that I provide. So I've been feeding them like a couple times a day. Oh, there he is, right there. I'm not sure if you can see him. He's right in the center of the tank. But his belly just doesn't get quite as full, and he's been slowing down a little bit, so I'm not really sure what I can do to make sure that he's eating. I see him eat occasionally, but just not nearly as much as the rest of the group is. So I'm a little bit concerned about him. He's kind of, the runt of the litter at the moment. But honestly, all the other Medacas are doing super well. They know me super well. You can see they come right up to the top here. They expect me to feed them. They know who I am. They have a really, really good feeding response. So they're honestly a really fun fish to have. Yeah, I really enjoy them. I think they're beautiful. They have just like a really cool iridescent blue that shines through. So yeah, that's the Medacas. So in the first video about this tank, I also put in one reticulated Hillstream Loach. And unfortunately, the Hillstream Loach passed away. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty sad about that. I thought it was just such a cool little fish. And I'm not totally sure why it passed away. Because I don't think it had anything to do with water parameters. Obviously no aggression, because it was the only Hillstream Loach in here. And the first week or so of having the tank set up, I had a really hard time getting it to eat. It wasn't really interested in any like sinking pellets. I have two different kinds that I use for the quarries I have in other tanks, and one that I use for the pleco. Here, I can show them. So yeah, I use these for quarries and these for my pleco. So neither of those worked, and the Loach was just not interested in either. So I tried a different food. I got like a Rapashi gel-based food, and I tried rubbing it, on the glass and on some of the rocks. And it seemed like the Loach enjoyed that and started eating. And so I thought, all right, good to go. We'll keep the gel on hands. The Loach seems to be eating. So that continued on for maybe 2 weeks or so. And then unfortunately, the Loach passed away. And again, tested water parameters, did a water change just in case. And yeah, unfortunately, it's a bit of a mystery to me. It's possible that it stopped eating and I wasn't aware of it. I thought the problem was solved. It's a possibility that it just being one Hillstream Loach, it could have been the runt of the litter in the shop where I got it, and maybe it needed a bigger group size to really thrive and have older loaches, sort of showing it what to do in terms of feeding and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's a mystery, and unfortunately it's really sad. So that's kind of where we stand with our fish here. We've got the 10 Medocas and no loach. And I'm not sharing this story with you guys to make you sad or anything. I think that it's just kind of an important fact of fish keeping, is that sometimes this is going to happen to you. Sometimes it's going to happen, to fish in the span of a couple weeks in a new setup. And it's important not to give up when this kind of thing happens. It happens to the best of us. It happens to me a few times. Like my, in the first tank I had, we had a lot of fish losses, and that was for just a ton of different reasons that I won't get into now. But the important thing is that when that stuff happens, it's okay to grieve and be sad, and it's not something you expect when you get into, keeping fish, especially keeping fish as pets, and almost having them, like, for me, I kind of think of them as members of the family in a kind of roundabout sort of way. But these things happen, and it's one thing that no one ever really told me when I got into the hobby. But it's important not to give up. It's nature, at its core. There's going to be a certain element of survival of the fittest. We don't necessarily know where these fish come from all the time and the conditions that they were bred in. And it's possible that the conditions you're providing at home have factors that the fish aren't expecting. There's just so many things that go into it. And you could go round and round in circles trying to figure out why. But ultimately, you're not necessarily going to know why until you develop that level of experience. So you just have to keep going on and do your best to enjoy what's going right about your aquariums. Learn, move on, and continue to create beautiful spaces. So that is the update on the Blackwater Riverbed thus far. A little bit of a sadder one, but there's a lot that's going right in this tank that I'm super pleased about. We've got quite a big snail population in here as well, which is cool, and it's great for the health of the aquarium. I still think that it is a beautiful, beautiful tank. I'm really happy with it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Let me know in the comments if you have any similar stories, or if you have any thoughts about what it might have happened to the loach, or if you've had any issues with aggression with Medocas like this before. But feel free to share your experiences. Overall, though, very happy with the tank. Plants are growing super well. The Medocas we have are doing fantastic. It's a growing little ecosystem that I am really proud of, despite the hiccups and loss along the way. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and looking back at the tank here with me. I'll obviously be doing more updates in the future for all the tanks, new builds, that kind of thing. So make sure you like and subscribe to get more updates and follow along with what I'm doing. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.